Welcome back to CIA Declassified. The mid-1960s, America was a powder keg of social upheaval, but beneath the surface of the summer of love, a much darker chemistry was brewing. The air in Washington, D.C. was thick with the scent of cherry blossoms and the cold, metallic sweat of a government terrified of losing its grip. In the windowless basements of the Technical Services Division, the lights never went out. They weren't just watching the Soviets, they were watching the wind. The era of the nuclear stalemate had made traditional war a suicide pact, so the agency turned to the invisible. They wanted a weapon that could disable an enemy without firing a single bullet. A hallucination haze that could be deployed via the ventilation systems of the Kremlin or sprayed from the back of a truck in a crowded plaza. This was the dawn of psychochemical pacification, where the goal was to make the very act of resistance a physical impossibility. Imagine a humid night in hilly San Francisco, 1966. The fog rolling off the bay isn't just salt and moisture. High above the city, in an unmarked apartment with a panoramic view of the Golden Gate, technicians are monitoring the barometric pressure with obsessive precision. They are preparing to release a cloud of simulants and eventually something far more potent. This was the world of MKZORRO. It was the marriage of advanced meteorology and psychoactive chemistry. The setting was one of scientific absolutism, where the Cold War justified the transformation of the American public into an unwitting control group. The agency wasn't just looking for a truth serum anymore. They were looking for a way to delete the reality of anyone standing in their way. They envisioned a future where a mist of submission could be rolled out over a protesting campus or a foreign capital, leaving behind a population that was physically healthy but mentally hollowed out. The setting shifts to the windowless corridors of the Edgewood Arsenal. Here, the air is sterile and the silence is punctuated only by the scratching of pens on clipboards. Volunteer soldiers sit in padded cells, unaware that the air they are breathing is being precisely enriched with aerosolized quineuclidinyl benzylate. We've done this before. I have a whole episode on it. I can't pronounce it, but they call it BZ. That's what it's actually known as, so that's what I'm going to call it going for. Here's the spelling, and going forward, it will be BZ. QUINUCLIDINYL space BENZILATE. Again, I have a whole episode on it. Known better as BZ. This wasn't the expansion of consciousness promised by the counterculture. This was a chemical lobotomy delivered through the lungs. As the drugs take hold, the floor begins to move like a river of black oil. Walls dissolve into vibrating static. The elite soldiers of the U.S. Army are reduced to weeping children, lost in a spatial disorientation so profound they can no longer find their own hands in the dark. They are clawing at phantom insects and conversing with people who aren't there, their eyes dilated into black voids. This was the Aerosolized-Nightmare of MKZORRO, a project that treated the human mind as a target to be saturated, proving that the most effective cage is one built from the molecules of your own perception. Why MKZORRO? Within the Technical Services Division, the name was a dark play on the fictional vigilante. Just as the literary Zorro left his mark with 3 quick strokes of a blade, the agency intended for this project to leave the invisible mark on the enemy, a cognitive Z that signaled total mental collapse. Research indicates the designation was chosen to reflect the swift and silent nature of an aerosol attack. It was designed to be a clandestine cutter, slicing through the defense of the mind before the victim even knew they were under assault. Also, just as an aside, a fantastic television show. I used to watch the black and white one when I was little. We are documenting the inventory of the agency's aerosolized experiments. Here is the verifiable record of MKZORRO. It was a sub-project of the broader MK Ultra program, focusing specifically on aerosol delivery. The project prioritized the use of BZ, a potent glycolate that can cause hallucinations for up to 80 hours. Records show the agency conducted vulnerability studies by releasing harmless bacteria over the New York subway system to map how gas would travel. The Technical Services Division developed a specialized micro mister that could be hidden in a standard briefcase. Documentation confirms that the project utilized safe houses in San Francisco to monitor the effects of drugs on unwitting participants. The agency experimented with rainbow mist using different colored tracer dyes to track the dispersion of chemical clouds in urban canyons. Historical records verify that Sidney Gottlieb, the black sorcerer of the CIA, personally oversaw the funding for MKZORRO. The project tested the synergistic effect of combining aerosolized LSD with high-frequency acoustic waves. Records show the CIA purchased industrial-sized nebulizers through front companies to test large-scale environmental dosing. The Edgewood Arsenal maintained a cloud chamber where human subjects were exposed to varying concentrations of aerosolized deliriants. Documentation indicates that the agency researched odorless carriers to ensure victims would not smell the chemical attack. The project developed pressure-triggered canisters designed to be placed in the intake vents of government buildings. Records verified that the CIA collaborated with the Army Chemical Corps on the aerosol efficiency ratio for BZ. The agency utilized wind tunnel models of the Kremlin to simulate the best points for a gas-based assassination. Documentation confirms that field test teams wore civilian clothes while releasing simulants in public parks to observe crowd behavior. The project explored skin absorption aerosols that would affect targets even if they were wearing gas masks. Records show the CIA tracked the recovery rate of subjects to see if the mental damage was permanent. The project developed a dry powder aerosol variant that could remain dormant on surfaces for weeks until disturbed. Internal memos reveal the agency considered using crop dusters for large-scale area denial missions in Southeast Asia. Documentation confirms that MKZORRO attempted to create a sleep cloud that could knock out an entire ship's crew instantly. Records verify that the agency tested the in-flight dosing of commercial aircraft air systems to simulate hijacking scenarios. The project researched aerosol LSD stabilizers to prevent the molecule from breaking down in ultraviolet light. Internal reports show the researchers noted a rebound effect where subjects became hyper-aggressive after the haze cleared. The CIA developed fake cigarettes that released MKZORRO compounds when lit by a target. Records show that the Sigorima in Albania were used as a negative control study for Western aerosol resilience. That's Albania's secret police. Documentation confirms that the agency investigated using cold fog generators to disguise chemical agents in natural weather patterns. The project utilized isotope tagging to trace how far a single mist released could spread through a skyscraper's HVAC system. Records verify that over 1,500 military personnel were exposed to aerosolized BZ during the testing phases. The agency researched aerosol antidotes that could be administered to agency teams before they entered a gassed zone. Documentation shows the project used high-speed photography to analyze the particle size of different nozzle designs. Records confirm the CIA built a mock Soviet village in the desert to test how dust storms affected aerosol concentration. The project explored biological aerosol hybrids where deliriants were attached to non-lethal spores. Internal memos indicate the use of subliminal acoustics played during the haze to guide the hallucinations. The agency maintained a weather modification desk specifically to coordinate MKZORRO trials with favorable wind conditions. Records verify that the Technical Services Division created exploding light bulbs that released concentrated gas when shattered. Documentation shows the project tested the effect of aerosolized deliriants on group cohesion during simulated riots. The CIA utilized animal proxy testing with primates to determine the threshold for permanent cognitive collapse. Records show the project developed aerosolized variants for silent paralyzing incapacitation. Documentation confirms the agency tracked the emergency room intake patterns in cities where simulant tests were conducted. The project researched aerosol chemicals that have no effect alone but make the lungs 500% more absorbent. Internal reports verify the creation of micro-aerosol drones, early prototypes, for precision building infiltration. The agency utilized psychometric testing to see if certain personalities were immune to the hallucination haze. Records show that researchers experimented with aerosol opioids to induce a state of lethargic euphoria in enemy soldiers. Documentation confirms that project staff were required to undergo self-dosing to understand the weapon they were creating. The CIA purchased over 10 tons of BZ from military contractors during the height of the project. Records verify the use of perfume atomizers for the discreet dosing of foreign diplomats at social functions. Internal memos describe the target atmosphere as the primary obstacle to achieving 100% mental neutralization. Documentation confirms the project ended only when the Church Committee began investigating the agency's illicit activities. The agency experimented with aerosolized scopolamine, scopolamine, I think it's scopolamine, to create a cloud of automated obedience and urban targets. Records verify that researchers measured blink rates and pupil dilation from afar to confirm drug onset in unwitting subjects. Documentation confirms that the project explored residue-free dispersals to ensure that no chemical trace remained once the haze dissipated. A quote from Sidney Gottlieb during a 1970s internal review: "We were looking for a way to conquer without killing. The goal was to make the enemy incapable of wanting to fight." A quote from Dr. James Ketchum, Edgewood Arsenal researcher: "The effects of BZ are so profound that the subject ceases to be a human being in any functional sense for days." A quote that is attributed to an MKZORRO project manager in a 1966 memo, but his name is redacted: "We are operating in a gray zone where the safety of the public is secondary to the security of the state." A quote from declassified testimony from an Edgewood test subject whose name is redacted: "It's a peculiar kind of weapon, ... You can breathe it in and not know it, and yet your reality has been fundamentally altered." A quote from Richard Helms, former CIA director, in an internal 1964 briefing: "The aerosol route is the holy grail of clandestine delivery. It bypasses the need for ingestion or injection entirely." A quote from a declassified 1968 Technical Services Division progress report: "Our test in San Francisco confirmed that the urban microclimate is the perfect vehicle for a non-lethal incapacitating fog." A quote from Sidney Gottlieb: "To control the air is to control the mind. The Zorro project proves that the environment is our most potent asset." End quote. Even decades later, the aerosol logs of MKZORRO remain some of the most guarded secrets in the agency's archives. The most significant redactions are found in the folder titled Operation Gossamer Wind Urban Testing Results, particularly in Appendix C, Long-Term Population Tracking. That section is entirely blacked out. What's hiding behind those black bars? I think these redactions cover a passive dosing study. I think the agency successfully aerosolized a low-concentration, long-acting compliance agent into the municipal air systems of at least 3 major U.S. cities during the late 60s to see if it would suppress anti-war rioting. I think the redactions likely hide the mortality curves of elderly citizens who may have been inadvertently killed by these non-lethal tests. I also think the most sensitive redacted pages contain the molecular signatures of current generation calmatives that are still being quietly utilized by tactical extraction teams today to neutralize high-value targets without a shot being fired. In the world of invisible clouds, the theories are as thick as the mist. For instance, there is a theory known as the Lothlorien effect. Some believe MKZORRO created time loss zones around sites like Area 51. They speculate the agency deployed a permanent aerosol barrier that causes neurological skips, making trespassers wander in circles and remember only lost time or aliens. This psychological labyrinth allows the agency to really locate intruders while they are in a serotonin-induced blackout. Then there's the mass hysteria trigger theory. This is a belief that strange mass fainting episodes in schools were actually remote MKZORRO tests. Theorists argue the drug was a catalyst to lower the threshold for terror, allowing the agency to study the nuances of fear. By using schools as closed laboratories, they refined the ability to turn a crowd's energy into a self-perpetuating spiral of hysteria. Then there's the chemical genetic memory theory. It posits that the project evolved into aerosolized RNA altering catalyst. The goal wasn't just hallucinations, but switching off genetic markers for aggression. This warfare would allow the state to edit human behavior across generations, chemically hollowing out the rebel gene to ensure a permanently docile and unchallenged hierarchy. And then there's the frequency Haze coupling speculation. It suggests the haze contained conductive metallic particles that settled in neural pathways as biological antennas. This would allow elfways to transmit thoughts directly into the brain. In this scenario, the haze turned the population into a massive receiver station, effectively turning human wetware into a remote control computer cluster. Was MKZORRO a success? Tactically, it was an unpredictable nightmare. The agency discovered that aerosol dynamics are too dependent on the whims of nature. A shift in wind direction could turn a surgical strike into a self-contamination event. The spatial disorientation was too extreme. Instead of becoming docile, subjects often became violently psychotic or catatonic, making them useless for interrogation. Tactically, it proved that non-lethal is a misnomer. The physiological stress of a BZ-induced walking nightmare caused permanent cardiac and neurological damage in a high percentage of volunteers. The unpredictability of the environmental medium meant the agency could never guarantee a specific outcome, turning every deployment into a high-stakes gamble with blowback consequences that often outweighed the benefits of the capture. Strategically, it was a shift. It moved the agency away from individual targeting towards environmental domination. It proved that the atmosphere itself could be weaponized as a cognitive filter. Strategically, the failures of MKZORRO taught the intelligence community that biochemical subversion is most effective when it is sub-threshold, too subtle to be noticed, but strong enough to bias human decision-making. It laid the groundwork for modern non-kinetic operations where the goal is not to destroy the enemy's body, but to make the enemy's mind a denied area for their own rational thought. This shift from over-the-top hallucinogens to stealth cognitive biasing redefined the landscape of psychological operations, moving the focus from mental collapse to mental guidance, ensuring that the target remains functional but fundamentally redirected toward the agency's desired outcome. As far as technological and operational breakthroughs go, MKZORRO had quite a few, such as nano-encapsulation delivery. The struggle to keep BZ stable in the air led to the development of microspheres that protect the chemical until inhaled. These spheres act as microscopic armor, shielding the volatile psychoactive compounds from degradation by sunlight, humidity, or oxygen. This allows for a much longer active life in the environment, turning a temporary mist into a persistent neural hazard. This technology is the foundation of modern targeted drug delivery in medicine, allowing for time-release inhalers that deliver medication directly to the deepest parts of the lungs with 99% efficiency. In the security sector, the military uses microencapsulated markers that can be sprayed on a crowd. The particles stick to the skin and clothes, remaining inert until scanned by a specific laser frequency, allowing for the tracking of high-value insurgents days after a protest. This chemical tattooing is invisible to the naked eye, but acts as a permanent beacon for surveillance systems, effectively tagging anyone in a hot zone for future arrest or monitoring. Atmospheric modeling algorithms. The rainbow mist test forced the agency to create the first complex computer models for urban plume dispersion. These models take into account the canyon effect of skyscrapers, the heat islands of asphalt, and the micro vortices created by moving vehicles. It transformed the invisible wind into a predictable flowchart for chemical warfare, allowing for the precise calculation of saturation points within a complex city grid. These algorithms are now used by DHS and in NOAA to predict the path of toxic industrial chemicals or dirty bombs in a city with terrifying accuracy. This plume mapping is critical for evacuation logistics, allowing emergency services to predict exactly which street corners will be lethal zones minutes after a release. In the military, these same models are used to deploy smoke screens or signal jammers that follow the exact contours of the terrain, ensuring that clandestine movements remain hidden from both the eye and the radar. Advanced neuroincapacitants. The research into aerosolized BZ led to the discovery of fentanyl derivatives and carfentanil. Oh goodness. CARFENTANIL analogs that act as ultra-potent comatives. These compounds are thousands of times more powerful than morphine and can induce total unconsciousness in seconds, which is excellent for the goals of the program. This moved the weapon away from hallucination towards instant sleep, providing a much cleaner tactical solution for hostage situations and high-risk apprehensions. These are used today by tactical entry units during high-stakes hostage negotiations to end a standoff without a single shot being fired. If a building is barricaded, gas infiltration through the air ducts can be used to induce immediate sedation of everyone inside, allowing for the safe recovery of victims. This was famously and controversially seen in the Moscow theater siege, proving that the search for the Chemical-Flashbang never truly stopped. It is the soft hammer of the modern police state, allowing for the total neutralization of a threat while maintaining the plausible deniability of a non-lethal intervention. Automated sentry detection systems. The fear of counter-aerosol attacks led to the invention of laser spectroscopy sniffers and ion mobility sensors. These devices can scan the air in real time, identifying the unique atomic fingerprints of thousands of different chemicals. It created a digital nose that never sleeps and cannot be fooled by odorless carriers, providing an early warning system against the very invisible terror the agency helped create. These are the invisible noses found in every major airport, subway station, and government building today, forming a chemical shield around critical infrastructure. They can detect a single molecule of an aerosolized explosive or toxin in a high-volume airflow environment, triggering an automatic shutdown of ventilation systems. This real-time biodetection is the shield created by the sword of MKZORRO, ensuring that the aerosolized nightmare cannot be used against the state that invented it. It is the backbone of BioWatch programs that monitor the air of American cities 24/7 for any sign of a cognitive attack or biological outbreak. The hallucination haze reminds us that the most terrifying cage is the one you cannot see, smell, or touch. MKZORRO was the moment the agency decided that the common air was a legitimate battleground. While the project officially ended, the dream of psychological pacification through chemistry remains a siren song for those in power. We breathe the air of a world shaped by these experiments, a world where the line between public health and state security is as thin as a cloud of mist. Watch the wind, stay upwind of the official narrative, and remember, when the air starts to taste like metal, the nightmare has already begun. Join us next time as we examine Weeping Angel, a sophisticated exploit that turns your smart TV into a live microphone. Imagine a world where your living room is a permanent listening post and the TV records your every word, even when the screen is dark and the power light is off. We'll look at the fake off mode, the Samsung vulnerability, and how the very devices we use for entertainment have become the ultimate Trojan horse in our homes. It is a story of the Internet of Things becoming the Internet of Spies, where your Black Mirror is always watching and the angel is always listening. Join us next time for The Listening Glass. In the meantime, I'll see you in the archives.